Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Progress City Radio Hour. I am Jeff Crawford. With me is my brother, Michael. Michael, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic, thank you. How are things?
Things are great. Returning from the West Coast. Had a nice little trip out there, but excited to get down to back down to Florida, in my mind, at least. To a certain part of Florida, I guess I should specify. You know, it's November, Michael. It's time for the harvest.
It is. Things have turned. Leaves and weather, hopefully will turn. And it's harvest time.
That's right. We continue to move through our themes in our EPCOT world, and we're not quite ready for the themed episode of the harvest yet, but we are lucky enough to have a great interview. So we're going to stay over here in the town hall. Michael, who are you interviewing today?
Oh my gosh, this is an interview I've been so wanting to do for the show for quite some time. We are speaking to a true blue, bona fide, actual Disney legend, Doris Hardoon.
That's right. Doris has had years and years with Disney and a lot of other experience to boot, which you all will discuss. Quite an interesting person, and like you said, rare to have a real Disney legend on.
Absolutely. I first talked to Doris, maybe even about 12 years ago for my own research, and ever since then, I have really wanted to tell her story and get it out because her life's path, her experiences are so unique among the people we've talked to, and at Imagineering, she's done so many things that we are very interested in here. So it's really exciting to get to talk to her.
That's right. And this is only part one. This is only the beginning. So let's go ahead and get to you talking with Doris Hardoon.
Today, we'd like to welcome a literal Disney legend and a Thea Buzz Prize Award winner for a lifetime of distinguished achievement, Doris Hardoon. Doris, welcome to the show.
Wow. Oh, wow. That was a very, very nice introduction, Michael. Thank you so much.
Listen, it is awards you have earned. How does it feel to be a bona fide Disney legend now?
Well, I get asked that quite a bit now, and I have to say my answer continues to be, I'm just overwhelmed. And I don't think it still has resonated with me. It just caught me off guard when that whole came through. And so I'm just still kind of like, wow, I'm amazed. And I'm just so, so honored by this whole award thing. And then to be line up with all the greats that's received it in the past, that's pretty cool. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, you're in good company. Yeah, a lot of people were excited when the list came out and saw your name on it. I was really excited to see it because it was very well deserved, I think.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Well, you know, you have such a great personal story. So many people we speak to from Imagineering all grew up in Southern California and grew up in the shadow of Disneyland. They were huge Disney fans growing up. You have a very different background, so tell us about that.
It's funny you kind of put it into that context because I sometimes forget that I literally, in growing up, and for those who don't know, you know, from Hong Kong, I'm not even first generation. My children are, and I did not have any kind of so-called Disney influences when I was growing up. I think I remember my mom perhaps showed some, you know, back in those days, it was like the film reels, right? And like showing some of the old, you know, Snow White. But I don't even remember seeing them at all. So it wasn't part of my everyday language of thinking about even ending up with Disney, let alone being in this part of this type of industry of design. I did, however, know, I think growing up, that I was sort of the black sheep of the family. I'm number 4 of my brothers and sister, and they were all very sort of organizational oriented and business oriented, you might say, and science. My sister was really into the science side, and I was the only one that used to kind of dance around and do all kind of that kind of stuff. And I'm sure they kind of thought, what is she doing? And then they left before me to come, to America for college. So I was sort of left for quite a few years with mom and dad. And yeah, I think I continued to sort of evolve into more of that type of interest, but nothing set, because it wasn't like my mom was one of those that said, you got to do piano lessons, you got to do this, you got to do that. There was none of that. And now I wish she did, because I think I would have loved to do piano lesson or dance lesson or singing lessons, but ended up in singing, actually started singing. And so the whole connection between what I'm doing now in the creative world sort of formulated back then in a way that I had no clue that would end up becoming what I am doing today. But I think it was that whole journey. We all talk about our life journey, and it just secured for me that the clarity, I am definitely not someone that's going to go to a real school. I call it real school. I'm not good in like studying. I'm horrible in exams. I'm horrible as soon as you say the word test or exam, I freak out. So I don't kind of do well in that. And that's what led me through my whole young years of being very comfortable, and started singing with a good friend of mine in high school in Hong Kong. And then she and now connected. We reconnected after 55 years, which is pretty cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah, she's American. And we talk about, we sang like, the House of the Rising Sun. It's like so cool, right? We sang that in a Catholic school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And here's me singing, and I found all those pictures when we were like 14. And we would then do our talent shows to other schools and sort of like a competition thing. But yeah, that was the beginning of it. And my friend, Debbie, she was really into folk music, and that was hot back then. I hated folk music. I'm sorry. And so at one point she couldn't carry on. She had, she wasn't feeling well. And so she sort of said, okay, I'm going to take a break. And that's when I broke out on my own and started singing on my own, and switched immediately to pop singing, right? And back then it was all called teeny bopper singing. It was a lot of that kind of stuff. And then modeling, totally went into the modeling scene. And I was sort of an anomaly because of my height, because I'm Eurasian. And it just sort of fit into that time, which was, I don't know, they were after it. I was just looking at pictures back in the 70s, and the clothing and the fashion, it's all coming back full circle again. And darn, I should have kept all of those kinds of great outfits I had.
You would be very, very stylish right now. I've seen some of those old pictures, and it would be very, it would be very stylish right now. You're right.
Isn't that wild? It just comes right back. It's like crazy. But I think that continued to secure for me that obviously I feel comfortable in that type of environment. But I did leave Hong Kong at the time when you're supposed to go to like college, but I didn't have any college in place. I just felt like it was time to go. And I did. So ended up, all Chinese, it seems like back then, end up in San Francisco.
Right.
Love San Francisco. Lived there for probably about 8, 9, whatever years. And I think it was kind of that time where I wasn't sure, again, what I'm doing, because I didn't have a college set. But my dad was the one that sort of position, said, you either find something or you come back home. And it wasn't time to go back home. But now I'm thinking back, I'm telling you, Michael, I wish I could go back home, and just hang out at home, right? And have mom and dad
absolutely. Absolutely.
That would be kind of nice. But no, they kind of knew enough. I think they knew me better than I knew myself. So I did. I ended up in ballet school, the Academy of Ballet. And so the whole concept of carrying through a creative environment, it was really more entertainment type environment that I really felt a connection with. I did want to be a dancer. I really, really would love to be. At that time, I felt that was what I wanted. But the reality kicked in was, I was 18. 18 doing ballet is not a good picture. You have to really start much younger. But I was good in jazz dancing. That was good. However, having said that, it was it was that aha moment that I felt kind of sad, because I realized I'm tremendously motion sickness challenged. I just cannot pirouette. I can't turn, even to today. I have a really, really hard time. And so that was sort of I guess you're not going to end up dancing and doing all kinds of spins and turns. So my logic kicked in and said, very clear, still don't want to go to a real college and do real studying and tests and all that scary stuff. Right. So I decided, I thought, well, how about art? And I've never taken art prior to that. And I thought, well, I could get away with maybe drawing something, and I don't have to take tests. And that's when I ended up on the doorstep of California College of Arts in Oakland. And I have to say, it was the best thing, thinking back, that I could have done for myself. And back then, it was amazing. I don't think I could compete with some of these incredible kids nowadays that are so good in what they do and what they have to do to get into these art schools. Back then, my gosh, I just walked up and said, I'm from Hong Kong and I'd like to sign up for college. And they went, great, you're a foreign student. Yay. Okay, come on in. So I just walked in and signed up and ended up 4 years later with a graphics degree, and I was really good at it. And that's how it all happened. So it's just sort of rolled one thing to the other. And would you say I'm lucky? I guess maybe.
I don't. I think you're very good at a lot of things. I think it's a great testimonial to for people out there who might not be good at enjoy taking tests and worry about that, to think that you just kind of picked out of a hat, kind of, and wound up being, a legend and this sort of this really renowned career. You didn't like taking tests, but it worked out pretty well for you in the end, I think.
I think you're absolutely right. And there's something to that. And, people ask me, so how did that work? It's not a science, obviously. It's just, I was at the right place, the right time. We talk about things like that. Who do you meet, the contacts that you meet. Back in those days, I didn't think at all of how important it is for me today to make connections for people. And I am a good connector for people. I know a lot of people, not a lot, like some people know a lot, but I know the right people. And I also know how to get to certain people. And I think all of those things, go back again. I think back, how is it that I have that interest or that skill or whatever you want to call it? And maybe I have to say, I watched my mom, how she was able to, and she's, she didn't work. It was that classic, she stayed home and took care of all of us, and dad worked, of course, but actually mom was the business mind. She had the ability. She knew how to negotiate. And I listened to her and watched her, and everything from daily, life of what she had to do to run the house, and all the way to business point of view, even though she's not business. So I attribute, whether it's true or not, but I'm going to attribute that to her, because I think she was a big sort of a moment in my life when I think back, a strong force that was actually quite quiet at the time when I was growing up. And I didn't realize it until as an adult now, understanding that. And that's something that I try really hard through all my career, from the time that I finally did graduate, have the degree. Again, it's a little bit of odd, I'll say clueless, but maybe again, right time, right place, knowing someone to someone, and got into Marine World, Africa USA, in southern San Francisco area, south, I guess, the Bay Area. And at that time, that park was owned by an individual, Michael Demetrius. It was a private owned, small, and I didn't understand, the differences, right, between a Disney organizational sort of entertainment industry. And even at that point, when I was going through college, Disney wasn't like in my mind. it was really more about just the industry, being in the design world and being very comfortable in the design world, and feeling that I can contribute. So when I got the job, which was pretty much right after I graduated, again, it was probably from a friend to a friend, just getting me in there, and right time, right place. They needed somebody to help sort of bring the park up to a level of sort of inclusivity of design, you might say. Mm-hmm. Because of being a land and sea animal theme park, it had all of the same requirements, signage, environmental, signage system, to marketing, to marquee, set work, graphics, print material was very big back then, more so, of course, because it didn't have the digital in the same way. There was a gentleman there called John Bagley. I always remembered him. He was a true gentleman of a time period where he knew how to do everything by hand. He was the gentleman that taught me how to paint murals, how to use a malt stick, how to hand letter. Like, you see guys on the street doing the signage on glass, where it's somebody's name. And he taught me how to do all that. And I didn't learn that in school, but that's the life learning. That's the experience part that I was totally comfortable in it and absorbed it like a sponge. I learned how to use bandsaws because my office was the giraffe barn, So it was very narrow, very vertical.
Yeah.
A little bit holy, like, with lots of little, areas where they haven't patched up, and, doing graphic work, which back in those days, it wasn't digital, it was all by hand. So all my letter set and, literally letter by letter that we had to set to do anything that was print requirement, and all the dust that would come in. I used to remember that was a very big challenge to try to keep that place dust free. Did my own silk screening, so all of that, it became a very hands-on experience. And I have to say, some schools have that type of knowledge building for kids. A lot of it is lecture, a lot of it is talk, and there's good stuff to that. But I think the value that I got in learning from the guys, I was like the only girl, and it was all the guys that knew how to do carpentry and the welding, all that. I learned all that right on the spot because we had to do what we had to do. And it was a small team. It was a family, truly a family run organization, and we all became family. And so I learned how very quickly to adapt my graphic skill of 2D and extrapolated it into how does that express itself as a set piece or signage or dimensional element, so it could be viewed, long distance, all those things started coming into my brain because there's logic related to it. And because I was able to be physically and experientially right there having to deal with it. And then also designing even merchandise. So going from 3D, 2D, all of that stuff was a great training ground for me at Marine World. And I'm so grateful to that time. And I loved all those people because I love animals, and having, the handlers come every morning when they go on their animal morning walk before the park opened. I mean, we had llamas go by, we had elephants go by, we had tigers go by.
Wow.
Yeah. And I used to have visits from Zuni, who was a baby cub, mountain lion. I mean, okay, baby is like, he was already about 100 pounds, but he was still like young. Mm-hmm. And the handler would bring in and say hi to me in my little giraffe barn area. And it's just stuff like that. It just grounded me. It grounded me to what I was doing and what I was participating and offering and doing my piece, my bit, to make each of those individual shows that much more special for the guests, whether it be the set in the back for whale show, or the orca show, and the dolphin show, or the land and sea show, or even the water skiing show. I remember designing the ski jump, and we had to get it repainted. And literally, I was out there in the middle of the night with my team. I mean, my team is really one other person. And two of us were out there painting the ramp in the middle of the night, with paint that could stay on when water was splashing up on it, so it's marine paint. Okay, I learned about marine paint, so yeah, that was cool. And it kind of gave me the security, the confidence to feel I could do it. I could figure it out, or I could learn, and I could ask somebody how to do it.
Well, I think there's something to be said for those small organization situations as a learning experience, because it's all hands on deck. I mean, Imagineering, as great as it is, you tend to be brought on in a very narrow role. But in a small place like that, you have to learn how to do everything.
And that's exactly right. And I'm so grateful I had that experience, as opposed to jumping into a larger company where you do kind of get a little pigeonholed, I suppose. But I have to say, those folks who know me well enough, I'm not a pigeonholer type person. It's hard to pigeonhole me. And I never had that attitude. And so I entered into Imagineering with that same feeling about it. And so through my career, I've always been able to be involved in lots of different types of projects, and being able to deliver on it is important. So you could follow through, and I do follow through. And I think that's one of the reputation that I know Rolly Crump or John Henge, or definitely Marty know, that whatever they set me on, I will deliver it, and I'll get it to what it is that needs to be done. It's a confidence, I suppose, but also it's my own will. I'm stubborn. I would say that.
That helps. It helps.
That helps. I'm not exactly one to be, feeling like I can't do it, right? And I think I say that in some of my speeches, is that I do, or my decks that have been shown now as part of my acceptance award things, is that I do take challenges very seriously, and I'll take it on. But there's some sensibility about that through all of the projects that I've been given. I will say there were a few moments where I end up standing in some dark space by myself, going, oh my God, I don't know how to do this. You get kind of like a pit in your stomach, and you go, oh boy, can I really pull this off or not? And I've got these people, waiting for me to help figure it out or get it on track. And yeah, I certainly have had those scary moments. But I find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, you've been a pop singer, you've been a model, you've been a dancer, now you're a designer. How do you wind up becoming an Imagineer? How does that happen?
Okay, so I don't know how many people know my heritage. And I say this with reverence, because I really believe there is some sensibility about how each of us are raised and our environment around us culturally that's inherited. Sure. And then there's that joke side, that, there's always that stereotyping, how they always say Chinese are, very like hardworking, science oriented, finance oriented. Well, I'm neither of that. I flunked math badly. But actually, I am a business-minded person.
Sure.
Oddly, right? Creative is one thing, and I try to tell some of my creative mentees, creative is great. That's innovation. That's like thinking out of the box. But you also have to be very grounded that life is a business. At the end of the day, you need to live. And live means you can't just kind of draw pretty pictures with no end to it. It needs to sell. It needs to match who it is that it's for. And so it's that whole aspect of being smart, left brain, right brain. So I am very left brain, right brain, which I didn't realize until later. So I think to answer your question about how on earth did I get to Imagineering, it was one of those moments where I wanted to expand. I wanted to grow, development, right? It's the classic thing. You want to become something in your life. And it's not that because Marine World didn't give it to me, it was amazing, but it came to a point where I realized perhaps it's time for me to expand and go to something more. And so what I did say, in fact, in my Legends speech was I had no clue the day that I showed up through a friend introducing me to say, let's go see if they need some help, some additional consulting talent or freelancing, because EPCOT was very on the board at that time, which I didn't know, but I didn't even know what EPCOT was. But when I showed up at WDI Glendale, which was back then Walter Elias Disney, WED, and the appointment was made for me. And I remember showing up and being shown to a conference room, and it was the slide carousel. It was those slide carousels that had click, 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 which it was so satisfying when you click it, because it's
yes, absolutely
positive sound, and it just sort of an image shows up as opposed to keynote digital. There's nothing on your keyboard. So I remember in the room, there were these guys in there, and I was, okay, show your portfolio. So I did. And I always think, I don't think my portfolio is that great, but apparently it did something. And then when the lights came on, it was Marty Sklar, John Hench, and Rolly Crump that was interviewing me.
No big deal. Yeah.
And I thought, okay, guys, here's what I got. And I'm just looking for freelance work. And they talked about it, and I didn't know, again, because I didn't know about how they needed help for EPCOT, and it was really going. And so they talked amongst themselves, and John Hench, I remember saying, wow, okay, graphics, great. I think she could, we could use her skill in the graphics department. And thank goodness, I didn't know again then, but I'm so grateful for Rolly, who stepped in and went, nope, I think she belongs in the show group. And back then, it was our creative studio today was called Show back then. And so he convinced Marty and John that I belonged in there. And I'm still sitting there, like as if I wasn't in the room,
Right.
And they're all like figuring it out. And they went, okay, all right, fine. Rolly, I figured, you know best what your needs are and all that. So they got it, okay, secured. And I went, oh, okay, well, what does that mean? And I got hired right on the spot because they needed the help. And so it was, and I said it in my Legends, which is so weird because that was September 9th that I had the Legends Award.
Mm-hmm.
Same week of September 9th week, 43 years ago.
Wow.
I was interviewed by those three guys, and
wow.
I got the job to come in. I don't remember the exact date, but my hire date was, on paper wise, was literally September 20th. In that, say, in 1979.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I find it fascinating that they were doing job interviews.
I know. Yeah.
And like screening, it wasn't like you had gone through like 5 different screenings or anything like that. It was just walk right in and you're talking to the head guys.
Yeah. And there wasn't any HR in the room.
That is so wild. But they knew what they were looking for, apparently.
You're absolutely right. To that point, they are the ones that know what is needed, and especially having Rolly there, who is, leading projects, right? Leading pavilions. And they look to him saying, well, what do you need? That's to me is the right way to do it, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you know anything about Imagineering at all when you went to interview?
Zero.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what, Imagineering was, let alone, Walter Elias Disney when it was called. And I didn't understand Walt's history. I mean, of course I know who Walt was, but not to the depth of how some of the young people today. They're
Oh,
so
sure.
amazingly knowledgeable about the whole heritage of the company. But all I knew is, Disney's synonymous, I mean, throughout the world for what it stands for. That part, of course, I understood, family and all the Snow White movies like that, but not to the extent that being an Imagineer meant what it meant.
Right, right. Well, what were your first impressions of WED when you got there? What did you think going into this world?
Um, Luckily, because I had an exposure on what entertainment responsibilities, deliverables were from Marine World. Okay, I got that. The beauty of that experience was something that I'm very fortunate to have had, because it was absolutely a very tight knit family. Family in the sense of small bunch of people in a small theme park, and we all knew each other and we all lend a hand and we all jumped to do whatever we have to do. So that was kind of my foundation of my expectations. And then I have to say, when I got into WED, back then, I may not be remembering the exact number, but it felt like it was only, 600 people or something at that time.
Yeah.
And they were gearing up, of course, because Tokyo had already come about, and Florida, but EPCOT was the biggie. And I believe when Rolly said, okay, you come over and I'll get you started on stuff, and I showed up on the day, I remember waiting down in the lobby for Rolly to come down and get me. And that was when I saw Eric Weston and met him, who was also an amazing personality. And one by one, I started meeting them. Then Herbie, then X, then Kim Olin, then Sam McKim, Clem Hall. Clem Hall became a very, very, very close family friend to me. He became almost like my father. And he and Phyllis, his wife, would treat me like I was their own daughter. And my kids end up becoming like their grandkids. They would come to all of their little plays and things when they were like, tiny, right? When they were kindergarten age. So Clem has a very soft spot in my heart. But all those guys, and Walt Paragoy, I didn't get to meet Walt Disney, but I kind of got to meet those guys, and Mark Davis, and I mean, we can go on, and it was all those guys. I didn't get to meet Mary Blair, but I knew like Kim Irvine's mom. I knew some of the other, there wasn't that many ladies, but some of the other ladies that were there that came over from animation. And I think how it felt was it was another family. I felt very connected that I went from one family to another family. And everyone felt like it was my big brother, my uncle, my dad. Well, Marty was kind of became our dad, right? I mean, I ended up knowing Marty for over 40 some years, and I only knew my father for only 18 years.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I left, right, to go to college,
Yeah.
but I never really moved back home. And then he passed away quite young. So I didn't get to know him much. But yeah, and I meant it when I said that, I view this company as my family, because I've been with them for so long and kind of grew up with a lot of these guys and watched their career. A lot of them already way on its way, but then there are others that just kept evolving, and I evolved with them. And I think, to answer your question, the biggest thing is I felt comfortable. I felt part of the family. I felt connected with all of them, and they were characters. They were all characters of all kinds of different colors. The way they think, the way they talk, the way they dress. X's dressing, as I loved it. He had all his little flamingo outfits, his pants, and all that. And
Oh, really?
very fun. And they would be like, he would be always putting his golf putts in his office, I mean, or down the hallway. It was, there was no right or wrong. We were all there kind of focused on one thing at the time, which was EPCOT. And that's something that I did want to mention that's so different through my career process and my experience as it continued on and the company became more and more successful. It's a wonderful thing. But the hard part was we became so scattered in the amount of responsibilities that a lot of us had more than 1, 2, 3. I think one time I had 7 projects going at the same time.
Oh, mercy.
Different phases, but still your focus is constantly jumping. EPCOT was EPCOT. We had an entire family of that group was focused on getting that EPCOT opened. And we opened it in, I think, a record time, considering we had no digital phone. I only had a beeper, and I thought the beeper was the hottest thing ever to see a number come across. And, it's like you felt so important with that beeper. But yet we had snail mail. I mean, we had that inner office mail, and
oh yeah,
still got it done. And it's still standing.
Yeah. Well, some on the 40th anniversary that day, there are people on Twitter who were engineers on the project and sort of did computer things on the project. They were posting pictures of some of the old equipment they were working on.
Yeah.
And it just amazes. I mean, I remember at the time it felt so high tech, but when you look at the systems that were used for it, I mean, my gosh, your phone has more power than any of these systems by far.
Yeah.
And doing it all with, as you said, no cell phones, probably little even in the way of radios. I mean, some of that technology, but still, and such an enormous project and done so quickly. You think of like the turnaround times for projects today seem to take years for an attraction to be built, but this was a park full of e-ticket attractions that 3 years from groundbreaking to opening day.
Exactly. And the complexity of the future side, which had technology that actually was state of the art, that many of it people didn't even really had time to kind of do the R&D on it enough, kind of go around. So, but put in, and that geodesic dome, my goodness, just that alone was already a feat. And then to have the showcase side and have that be replicated, and all of those are partnered and collaborated with individual countries, with all of those types of efforts and work that went into securing a actually go on having a France, a Mexico and a China and whatever. Because one of them was Africa. I was asked to design an African pavilion museum, or a big, because the company at one point received the Tishman collection, which was and was one of the privately owned, the top African collection privately owned, and somehow we got it. I don't know how it all happened, but it landed on my lap. And the collection actually came to, by then it was changed to WDI, and it was down in our facility in the main building at 1401. Oh, wow. And I'm talking 1,000 pieces, and it's all put into, and it wasn't set, our whole space is not a vault. It's not set up for temperature control, but we had to scramble and make sure, because all the pieces that came were wood and clay, so very vulnerable for artifacts wise, and some dated way back in time. And I was asked to design a museum, which I did. And I was so sad when, to your point of, thinking about how many projects have I been on that in the end it doesn't work out. Well, this was one of them too, that I really hoped that it would happen. But in the end, the whole African pavilion concept, they couldn't get enough countries on board for funding it to make it happen at World Showcase. So I have the artwork, and the collection came and went, and in the end, I think it's now over at the Smithsonian.
Right. That pavilion is a huge missed opportunity. I think the work that I've seen that was done for it all looks really compelling. And that collection was such a beautiful collection of, as you say, just this vast collection of artifacts. And a real missed opportunity. I still remember they had the sign out there on the promenade with the coming soon. And I would always look around to see if they were working on it, and they never were.
No, it never came about.
Yeah, this was such a huge project. What did you think about the project when you were introduced to it? Like, I assume they take you in, they say, this is what we're doing. What did you think of all this?
So actually, I was hired for Life Health Pavilion
Okay.
to work with Frank Armitage.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. So on the day that I showed up, I just had this remembrance that I was walking down what's called today the John Henge sort of hallway, where all the artwork is, towards the mall shop one side, and then the carpentry shop. And he had his whole team over there setting up a part of a concept for the Life and Health. And it was actually an artery. It was like I'm calling it an artery. I didn't know at the time. So I'm looking around, and I ended up going in the direction somebody said that way. And I happened upon this humongous mock-up of an artery, like a human artery.
Uh-huh.
It's probably about a diameter of maybe 10 feet. And the point is that you can walk into it, because the Life Health was all about you being part of understanding, inside out. And I'm standing there looking at it, and this person walked up to me and said, who are you? I said, oh, I'm new here, and I'm supposed to be looking for Frank Armitage. And he looked at me and says, you just found him. I just remember looking at Frank. Oh, okay, sorry. I didn't know that was you. But that was fascinating to me. Worked with, because that was so science-based. Mm-hmm. And yet we had to interpret it in a way to make it entertaining and not grossed out, kind of approach.
Right.
And believable. And that's what Frank and his whole team were doing. And so I got pulled into that for a while. And then the day came when they said they couldn't get the funding for that, which was a real letdown, because we had all been vested into it and wanting to tell that story about. And it was at the time, and you think about today, we're talking about relevancy and how we need to be very in tune with our bodies and health and all that. It was already talked about back then. I mean, back in the 70s, right? 80s. And we were already very relevant about those kinds of, even the cultural side for the showcase. That was all part of that extension that we're now trying to really harness. That it was done. It was totally done back then.
Well, that's what gets me, is that when people talk about whether or not EPCOT is relevant today, I say, look at the topics that they were addressing, that you guys were addressing back then. Energy. Well, that's it's stuff you see on the news every night. Energy, health, like ocean and climate,
yes,
food
land
production. Yes, all of it.
Yeah.
It's stuff you see every day. It's all still an issue that we have to address. So I think it's all really still relevant.
That's why it was so brilliant, with what Walt's vision was for EPCOT. And I'm proud of the fact that we were sort of this first generation, from Walt's voice, from his vision, from his ideals, that we carried it through and created what we created for it, and experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And I think it's changing right now a little bit.
Yes, indeed. So you were on Life and Health. What were you doing on that?
Good question. I don't think I even got far enough into that.
Oh, okay.
It got kind of canceled. But I think I would have ended up helping Frank to create some of the practical elements within the pavilion, whether it be the food or if there's a theater, so that I could help design the spaces, the styling of it, graphics, whatever is needed. And that's in the end what I ended up doing when when Life Health kind of got stopped and I got pulled into the land pavilion, that's when Rolly put me to work as one of the three designers. So the others were Jeff Burke and Steve Kirk and Tim Kirk. And they all had their own areas responsible. Rolly gave me from the front door, from that point, styling that whole central court area, which became the farmers market food area, and designing and styling all of the food outlets, so the sort of the food stalls, and then all the upstairs styling. And then he gave me the everybody knows the Harvest Theater.
Yes.
And that was my scope up to there. And I collaborated with Walt Paragoy, who was the visionary for the entry into the pavilion mosaics on either side, which I understand is still there in its entirety of how his vision was. And then he also designed the fountain in the center of the farmers market, and that collaborated or partnered with the design for the balloons that were suspended from the ceiling that would animate up and down. And then I did everything surrounding it to kind of work with Walt's color schemes. And I know I spent time working with Walt on his development of that whole fountain and the balloons, and with Rolly as well, what to put on there and what's the color scheme. And then I pulled some of that and brought it into the common spaces, the assembly space. But I totally took over the styling and design for the farmers market and the stalls. And Rolly gave me a tone that he wanted, which was very much of this wonderful artist, Charles Wysocki. His work, I absolutely loved his work. He's a very graphic artist, designer, but his work totally connected with how I think. I'm not a realist artist. I don't really do paintings that are like perspective paintings or things like that. I'll create my perspective, but my perspective is very graphic and stylized and abstract. And I think Rolly knew my strengths, and so he gave me that assignment. And so I created the whole color scheme and the styling of that area. And this is the beauty of back then. It was just amazing. I designed, I think there were 6 food stalls, like an ice cream, a salad, a sandwich, something else, and something else. And I came up with the concepts, which, by the way, I found all the artwork. And I know. And my office back then ended up, we all started in the mall shop. That was kind of the thing. You had to be in the mall shop. And so, okay, back up a bit. When I first was hired by Marty, when I first actually came in, I didn't have an office. I was roaming around a lot in the main building with my Kennedy cabinet. Do you know what that is?
Okay, yeah.
Red metal cabinet that had all the drawers and things.
Right.
Pens and pencils and things. And I would drag that thing around in the hallways because I had no office. So I would just kind of go to a common space, sit there, and then do whatever I have to do. Or I jump in somebody's office that may not be there on a business trip. Finally, I gave up and I said to Marty, I can't keep doing this. You have to get me an office or what? So I ended up getting an office, really fantastic, right around the corner from all those guys, from X and Walt Paragoy and Clem and Rolly and all that. So that was amazing. But then at one point, because of my work that I was doing for land, they ended up putting me down in the mall shop because after I finished designing all those signs, I actually got to paint them. So This is like never today's time. So Anne Malmlin, fabulous designer, she was a wood carver. She ended up hand carving all 6 whatever signs that I designed for the farmers market in the land pavilion.
Wow.
It was all done right there in the mall shop. And she would bring all these solid wood pieces, clamp them together, sand it down, chiseled it out, and did exactly all of my design. And my design was very embossed. So very high-low with different things on it. And then after she finished, I painted every single one of those signs, that actual one of, and it went into the pavilion.
Wow.
I know. I wish I had the ability to know where all those signs went at the time when they decided to change over. Then I would have just thrown it into my car and drove it.
That would be great. They were great. It was such a fun atmosphere between the graphic styling of all the signs and everything, and the colorful umbrellas. Of course, you had that fountain there that was so much fun, and the balloons. But just the atmosphere was such an inviting, fun atmosphere.
Yeah, and even then it was hard because that was the biggest pavilion of all the pavilions on opening day. So it was very cavernous, and it was hard to figure out how to make it feel warm and comfortable. So color was about the only thing we could do. It had carpet to try to drown the sound because it would have just reverberated like crazy.
Yes.
And it had the fountain, so it had some water. Believe it or not, it had water. The water was cascading over the fountain, and it helped, but it was still kind of hard. I ended up designing all the wallpaper that as soon as you come in through the front door, it was both floor to second, third story. So some of those walls, if you continue it, it's over like 50 feet. And I remember designing the wallpaper to be, because the land pavilion is all about harvest and land and crops and things like that. And that's how I got to the Harvest Theater mural. But that wallpaper mural was designed specifically with a wallpaper material that was perforated to help absorb sound. And so when I created that concept, believe it or not, I did not have a company print it. Maybe I don't know why. Maybe because it was too vertical, it's too high, and they can't. I'm not sure, but you know who ended up doing it? Another amazing person, Bill Anderson. Bill Anderson was the scenic artist that was part of us. I think he ended up at one point maybe in the company at WDI. He used to use that back scenic area over by the sculpting room, and he would do all his mural drops and paint them there. In fact, the Autry Museum big mural down below was painted.
Yes.
That was painted over at that back area drop, and then shipped out to the site and then pieced together. But same thing he did. But he actually ended up painting that wallpaper I designed, and it was white on white technique. So it was beige on beige with vertical designs of like a crop, like a wheat crop. It was very light, very faint, and I wanted it white on white, so it's not obtrusively visual, but yet if you look at it, there's a pattern, so it kind of breaks it up, and with the sound absorption. That was all the way around the entire rotunda. And that poor man was painting that thing for a long time.
I was about to say that must have taken forever because it was very vertical. I mean, I remember that pattern, just very vertical in that space.
Oh, yes. It took forever.
Just enormous.
It took forever.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. Yes.
All hand done. Hand painted. I mean, you won't even know that today. There's no way I would have been able to talk the show team into letting me hand paint every single sign. I mean, these signs were all hand done, built and painted and mounted. And the murals that I designed for the building, I hand painted them all onto the building on those stalls. So that was my training from Marine World that was taught by John Bagley, which was really fantastic. So I got to do that.
Do you work on I know they had that Kraft cheese wagon down there. Did you work on that?
Oh, yes. And I actually forever had it. I had to do a little mock-up model. So the model shop made the scaled version, and I hand painted that to get it approved from Rolly and Marty and everybody and John Hench. And I don't know what happened to that beautiful little piece. It was with me in the office for a long time, and then I don't know where it ended up becoming. It went
That's
away.
a treasure.
I know.
Yeah, well, tell us just about working with Rolly. He's a special character. He's a very unique individual. What was it like working on his team?
Yeah, he's unique. He's an extremely colorful individual. He's a very endearing person and very, very emotional person, true artist type. What I liked about him was he's not shy to say to me something if it's not working. And he's also very supportive if it's something working. And so it made it clear for me, for somebody new and somebody sort of fresh out of school still, I felt at the time, to have somebody like him to mentor. I didn't ever have to worry about where I stood with how I had to guess, like, oh, what is it he liked or not like, that kind of thing. Where I'm sure we all have had bosses like that, where you kind of wonder.
Right.
And it takes extra energy and time. It's like, oh, come on, just say what it is you want. So that part I truly appreciated. He had a clear idea. His style is very distinct. I mean, there's no second guessing of Rolly's look and style, and I appreciated that, and it matched what I was thinking and what I wanted. So it was, and he's so fun. I mean, it's just, that was the thing I loved about all of them. They worked hard, but it's that classic saying, you work hard and you play hard. Well, They definitely worked hard, but they are definitely funny people and fun-loving people. Everybody. Harriet Burns, I remember she was like delightful. She's this tiny little package, and oh my gosh, don't get on the wrong side of her. And she would tell you exactly what she thinks. But I love that. You talk about ladies that are like, that I connected with, that I looked up to. And I mean, she was one of those. And I can't think of all their names now, but there were so many of them that paved the way. Off the top of my head, my gosh, Karen Armitage, Tyling Wong, Joyce Carlson, my goodness, Anne Malmlin, of course, Maggie Elliott, Kathy Kirk, Katie Olson. These are all such amazing ladies that I had the opportunity to partner with on all kinds of great projects. Mm-hmm. And that's the beauty of how I remember when I get asked all the time about how was it back then. I could laugh when I wanted to laugh. I could cry when I wanted to cry. It wasn't like I had to behave myself. I was not a behave myself type person, but you just felt like it was the family thing where you could argue and you could get really upset over things, but then there's always somebody there that's going to say, oh, don't worry about it. Geez, get over it. But it wasn't like heavy duty. It wasn't like serious. It wasn't. Jack Ferguson. Do you remember him? Or
I don't know that name.
He was a gentle giant in the mall shop. This was a gentleman who was like 6'7", 8.
Oh my gosh.
He was a giant, huge gentleman. At the time when I met him in the mall shop, his little area, the cubby, he didn't sit in the middle where I was. He was up against the edge. He had a little cubby that was the size of him, but he had everything organized, his little dowels, his little pegs, his little thing. He was a miniature maker for all the models. Oh, and wow. This man's hands was bigger than my face. And yet he made the tiniest little things all in scale to go on all the show models that Walt taught us as a key element as part of our process of design. And we did all the model work always. Everything was always modeled, whether first layer white, just so you see the proportion and scale and stuff, all in scale. then you go to the color. And that color was so important because that's when we figured out all of the color scales and whether it's right or wrong. And that's where we made the changes. Cheaper before you go build it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You'd be surprised how many people don't get that. But that was how I was trained. And it made total sense. I have to tell you this one little side story.
Sure.
On Westcott.
Yes, please.
And I'll come back. You take me back to EPCOT and we can continue, but it had to do with model. The importance of a foam core model in its infancy to show scale, volume, master planning of an entire resort, such as Westcott. We did a humongous scaled model as a presentation, a pivotal presentation to Michael Eisner and Frank Wells and the board of directors. And everybody was there, Marty, Tony Baxter, Nikki Steinberg, all those folks were there. And Jan Circus, who was my creative partner, he was the creative concept architect. And I led the projects, the two projects, that and Disney Sea for Long Beach. And we presented, took us about 2 hours because it was a huge project. We had the whole room set up. It was beautiful. I have pictures of that too. Beautiful. Excellent. And we went through the whole presentation. The model was all staged, beautifully lit, kind of propped up so the whole board sitting in the foreground could see it as it's pitched up. Finished it and waiting for comments. And the first thing, I won't say who, actually I don't even remember the person. One of the board members said, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I was just like blown away by all of this. Is amazing. But I'm just like curious to ask. So the park is going to be all white?
Oh boy.
How's it going to work? All white. How's it going to be kept clean? I was speechless.
What do you say to that? We're going to get some power washers. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
No, this is a study model. And so you go into the whole explanation based on, how we were all brought up to show for purposes like today, to present to show the volume, the scale, the proportion, the master planning of an entire resort. From here, if it works, then we will then advance into color. But no, the park, no, the park, no. A good point, but no, the park is not going to be white. It will be in color.
It's a good note. I appreciate it. Thank you. But no, we'll put some color in. Yeah.
It's like, yeah. But anyway, I have to tell you that was an interesting moment. But that's a good point, because we are so familiar with what we all do, and we assume others will know.
That's a very good point.
Yes. Yeah. And so I wasn't angry. I wasn't upset. I wasn't like horrified. I didn't show it. I was just suddenly dawned on me. How could somebody who comes from another world, he's obviously maybe a finance person, I don't know, business person, whatever, but how would they know? Just the same, like if I stepped into one of that person's meeting, I would maybe say something that he would go, duh, I mean, didn't you know that? So I don't take offense, but rather it was a note for me to be, from that point on, every time I did presentations or even today, talks and etc., I'm trying to be very clear and make it so that whatever I do express, it's understood and explained. Just like I know when I do a lot of media work, they always say, which I caught myself earlier, you don't just say one name like Bob, Bob what, or, Michael what, you follow it through, right? Or Bob Iger or Bob, Michael Eisner. And I get it, because that's the part where we forget that we're so comfortable in what we say and do, and others are not in our world. And
right.
Just to
but
show
it's good. It's good, to it's good that they asked the question, so you can be glad that they asked the question instead of just that. You don't want them going home thinking, "Oh my gosh, they're building this whole white park. It's going to be hideous."
Right, and then say, "Forget it. We're not going to fund it."
Yeah. What I find so fascinating about, this time that you came into Imagineering is that it was sort of the last hurrah for a lot of Walt's people. It was the first big project for your generation of people, but there's this crossover point where, the legends of one generation worked with the legends of another generation. And, you're talking about all these people you enjoyed working with. Like Clem Hall, what a great artist. A lot of people might not know his name.
No.
And just a fantastic artist. What can you tell me about him?
He was a loving, oh God, I love Clem. He was so dear to me and me to him. And I don't know why, we just clicked right off the bat when we met each other. He's just a quiet soul, but a very seasoned, he came from Paramount. I mean, he ran the entire Paramount. There was a whole book, and I can't remember the name of the book now, but he was featured in it, and he ran the whole, I guess they call it the set prop department or show department in the movie world. But he is just absolutely one of these individuals that a personality for sure, a gentleman from top to bottom. He's American, but he has like a British roots kind of approach to him. Very elegant and sweet. And his wife, Phyllis, was so dear to me. And when Clem passed, I continued, with my relationship with Phyllis, and she passed a while now. But he did a lot of work. He did a lot of portraitures and things like that, and paintings for concept paintings. But you're right. He's just one of those that a lot of people don't know that much about. Just like Sam McKim. He's another one.
Oh my gosh. He's so great.
Elegant, quiet gentleman, just wonderful. These guys could just twirl you around their little finger the way they draw, sketch, think. And they all have humor, but I don't think we have as much today. I'm kind of
I'd agree.
Because people are feeling so worried that if they have humor and they may say something that might hurt somebody else or not, viewed politically correct, which is not the intent at all by people. But
well, and you also mentioned Herb Ryman, who everybody seems to have fun memories of.
He was a colorful character. I mean, he made it known when he walked in the room. He was just Herbie, right? With his little velvet jacket he always wore. He was adorable. And he'd come around and all of them used to do that, except Herbie was even more because he's so animated and very extroverted in his character. But he'd come around and say hi to all of us kids, hey kids, how are you doing? And see what we're doing and working over our shoulder or looking at it or little sketches. He'll come in and make little notations and here, that's what I would do. And his little one-liner is like, oh my gosh. It's like, okay, great. All right. Good show. But they were wonderful.
Yeah. I would be remiss if I also did not ask about Walt Paragoy and what it was like working with him.
Walt was another one that a lot of people, incredibly colorful character, definitely not shy to tell you how he feels, and he's quite abrupt. Always very kind to me. My office was right next to him, and I used to go sit many times, just sit there in his office while he sketched and just kind of chatted and downloaded some of his wisdom. Although I think there's certain people going, oh my gosh, he's such an angry person. Like what's that one character, the angry bird kind of a personality.
Right. Yeah.
But that was Walt, that was him. We all had our personal lives too. And our lives bled into the work life, right? That's why a lot of times when people ask me to speak about my career, I always throw in the word life because it is life career. my life was blended with career and career into my life, and it's as one. And Walt always had a very edge about him that I think some people shied away from him or felt intimidated by him. But I never was. And he was the only one that once said to me, he said, "Oh my gosh, how amazing is it that there are so many people in life that had to learn, study, go visit, be part of cultures to be assimilated into a way that a culture that's not of theirs, and to have to learn it that way." He said, "How fortunate you are," to me, "that you're born with your heritage of growing up with the sort of the coming together of very different two cultures of very, very traditional Chinese, and yet you have the blood of a whole nother culture from like the Middle East, even though I didn't even know this of my father until I was a young adult, that Hardoon comes from X and he's Jewish, and that he spoke Arabic." And I'm like, really? I didn't even know that. But I do believe that somehow when you're growing up with your family that you take for granted or that you don't think about a lot of times, that it does get sort of symbiotically sort of becomes you and it's in you. And that was Walt's point to me, is how great that is, that you have all those parts that's already in your blood. And you don't even have to go think about it or find it. It's already in you. And I appreciated that. I've never forgotten it.
It's a good perspective. That's an interesting perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, and all of us, if you think about where we all come from, in some ways, we all didn't come from one.
Right.
Came from two at minimum, and those two had different directions that it came from. And it's in you. It's in your blood. It's part of you. It's your DNA. It's your makeup.
Right. Well, and that perspective, that cultural perspective has served you so well, as, we'll talk about later in your career, and sort of returning home to work on projects. So it did wind up serving you very well in your life.
Yeah, it did.
You mentioned this before, but we have to get into it. Your greatest, perhaps in some quarters, your greatest claim to fame is the fabulous wall carpet you designed for the Harvest Theater. Please tell us how that came about.
I'm telling you, this is so amazing to me to even hear. And you are one of only a handful that have said, "Oh yeah, no, there's people who really is interested in it or follows it." And I went, "What? Seriously? Really?" And Tom Fitzgerald is hilarious because, he's in charge of EPCOT, and I think even recently he still is involved with that. And before I left on the furlough and COVID thing, I used to remember he would come in every time he's been to Florida, and he comes back and he runs into my office because his office is close by. He goes, "All right, I'm telling you, it's still there. It's still looking fantastic. And I am going to chain myself to that wall if there was ever a conversation by anybody saying that it's going to go away, because it has become what is it called? Is it become a following, or there's...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Did you have any idea how famous and beloved this had become? Because it is...
No clue.
It's like I was telling you the other day. I mean, people have it as their like wallpaper on their phone, or as their desktop background. It is a thing.
I'm totally floored by that. And I am so honored that people feel. So how it came about was, okay, I know you had talked to Rolly, and Rolly had set me on that assignment to figure it out. And Kraft being the sponsor for it, it's all about land and it's about health and food. And that particular film, that was the original film in the Harvest Theater, was about the agricultural side of America, Middle America, and the growing and all of that. And so that he said, "Go and figure out a mural." So I did, and I came up with a few options, but I landed on that particular design, which I actually have the artwork, the original painted artwork. And here's the carpet. The
Oh my
actual,
goodness.
these are actual carpet. This thing is as old as, well, definitely probably older than you, but this was with me when I went to the factory
Unbelievable.
to talk about the actual 8 colors of carpet and how I wanted it to go on the wall. So when I came up with the concept, showed it to Rolly, of course, and John Hench, and they all approved the design of it. And it's funny because it's full circle. If you look at some of my original artwork that I've gotten into now, I started creating a collection that I want to eventually pitch to galleries. But
fantastic.
there is some similarity to, I've always carried through a very sort of a soft sort of evolving kind of a shape thing that I tend to do in art. So that particular that concept ended up pretty quickly anchored down by all the leaders saying, okay, and then it had to be approved by the craft folks too, that they liked it. And the carpet part didn't come right away. It was, how do we do it? So the concept was always a mural. Okay, you paint it, and it had a wainscot of up to about 3 feet. And so it was only about 8 feet high, but it was long. It's over 200 feet long, continuous, right? Concept. And it wrapped around the whole pre-show. And you're going to die when you hear this, but Anne Malmlin, the lady that did all the carving of all my stall sign for the farmers market, she and I collaborated and came up with a sample, 2 samples. One, they were both about 3 feet wide by 5 feet vertical, and she put together, it's like a mock-up of what that wall could be in different materials. So one idea originally was I had for Rolly was the whole thing was going to be done by wood carved and embossed wood carving. So whether she actually hand chiseled out shapes of my mural or we applied and mount on. And so there's a dimensionality to it. And that was one concept that we actually mocked up and presented. Then the second one was a combo of that wood for certain parts of the mural, which was like where the actual, like the wheat shapes, be wood carved. And then the rest, the background would be all carpet comboed. And then finally, the third sample was all carpet. And I ended up finally saying all carpet because wood, it'll get damaged.
Yes.
People will, scratch on it, pick on it. And even though we seal it, because I wanted it natural. So it was like pine, but carved naturally so that you carry the natural color scheme. But I know in time it would get, handling it and all that would be dirty. The combo of the two was complicated to try to meld the two materials so that it's seamless, so it looks like it's part of one. And so the concept of the carpet actually came out of just process of elimination. When I said I knew, and I have to say this, my family at that time, and I have to say it in a way where it was not planned this way, I had to still get 5 quotes from different carpet companies to then present back for the budget. And the company that ended up, so when we landed on the carpet, they all went, okay, but there were people still not clear about how that would look like. Rolly got it. And I said, I want all of the designs to be beveled. So if you look at it cross-section, all of like where the seed pods were and the flow of the different wheat shapes, they were all hand cut beveled so that you had a shape to it. So it's not just flat like you see on the floor.
Right.
So it has shapes and movement in it, but all within a certain millimeter high so that it would be still even. So when they
Interesting.
made the carpet, it's not too hard to make it because carpet companies, they wouldn't know how to really do that. So it would have to be hand shaved for the beveling after. So that was part of the requirement that I pitched, and Rolly agreed that that would give it more definition. So it would almost be like a line outline if you did it by hand, by artwork. It's like when you do a black outline, it gives it definition of that shape. So the beveling was to give it the definition of each of the shape and the separation of the colors. So when I went to find companies, and they're all in Asia, right? All Hong Kong, and actually no China. It was mainly all Hong Kong, and some American companies that we usually deal with to get quotes and to explain 8 colors. I want it like this. Here's the design, and I want it beveled, blah, blah, blah. So finally, the company that won out was called Taiping Carpets in Hong Kong. And Taiping Carpets was my uncle's company. And I swear it's not because I got any kickbacks or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, because I didn't find the companies. It was our quotation department.
That is so wild.
Yeah, they send out my entire package to all these carpet companies, and then whoever comes back in with the best price and can do the job is the winner. And they were the winners. I got sent to Hong Kong to art direct, and I showed up, and my uncle said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You're doing this carpet, that's why. And you guys have to make sure it's all done in the way that I want." And that it was just one of these wild, crazy, never thought about how did that happen. And they had no clue with my design. I had no clue it was them.
That is so wild.
I know.
And it worked out great.
And it's still there. And the other is, I said, it has to be 100% wool, because 100% wool will never fail. The colors will, and it's all integrated colors of the wool carpet strands. So it's not printed color. When you print, there's a lot of carpets you go to, like casinos and things.
Mm-hmm.
Designs are all printed. So if you look at it and you pull the yarn apart, the color's on top and the yarn is still white or black or whatever color.
Right.
This is all yarn color, so it'll never fade. And the wool, you'll never have problems with bugs going in there. However, you do get moths like wool. But I wasn't worried because Disney's perfect with all of their spraying here, spraying there, and they spray everything. So,
well, I had wondered because, I mean, it still looks, it looks incredible. I mean, it looks new. And I had always wondered how exactly it, assuming they're not replacing it all the time, it still manages to look factory fresh, really.
And that was the other requirement. I said, I don't want any breaks. I don't want any seaming, because you'll always see it. This is one continuous 200 lineal feet carpet that was made in one shot. So mounting it was quite a feat, because it came rolled huge and it's heavy as heck. So when they unrolled it, it had to be perfectly mounted so there's no sagging. And to your point about why it's so crisp and clear, because of wool. So even for your home going into the future, always buy wool carpets. That's why a lot of the Persian rugs and things, they're silk. Silk is another fantastic natural material to use. But you're on a vertical. Vertical, you don't get dirt on the floor. You're walking on it.
True.
Vertical is clean. So all they have to do is vacuum this way if they want to clean it. But even hands touching it compared to feet walking on it every day, it's not even close. You'll never have the problem. And I knew that because my father was in the cotton business. So all sort of getting understood growing up with, going to his office and seeing all that, and then what lasts, what doesn't last, how the color, how the this, that's our family, right? Chinese people are always in the commodity side, the textile side. So my whole family's textiles and commodity. So I understood that the value of having it this way, you won't have a problem. And it's true to form. It's been there since 80.
Yeah.
79.
That's amazing. You were talking about the wood and the wood look you were looking for throughout the pavilion. And I love the way the pavilion used that wood for everything, like handrails, and they had that big carved, the pavilion logo there on the wall that looked so good, carved out of wood. And that was a really nice finish to use, I feel.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
really
that was that
natural.
Harvest Theater logo. I designed that. It's not there anymore.
Mhm.
It's not called Harvest Theater. But that was, and again, hand carved. And she hollowed it out, and we put lighting in between in the back, so it has a back glow to it.
Mhm. I have one more land question. In his book, Marty Sklar tells a story about a pitch you did or you helped make to Kraft. Could you tell us about that?
He loves the story, and actually, I have told it. I told it at my Thea acceptance speech, and I got a laugh on that. I was no more than maybe 3 months in to my role at WDI as an employee, and got put on to Land Pavilion working. And Kraft Foods, the chairman and the whole board decided to come to California to review what our team has done as sort of an interim thing. And Marty and Rolly, John, Hench, everybody was like, okay, we got to get it all organized. So we did. We each were asked to get all our areas modeled, and I had a model to present for my farmers market area. And I was waiting for my turn to do my pitch. It was happening at WDI in the back area, so it was all mocked up with duvetine, black area.
Mm-hmm.
So it was beautifully lit, and we each had our little sort of section to show our designs. And it came to my turn, and there was probably about 20 of them, along with the CEO of the Kraft, and they were all moving from one space to the other, and they were gathering. And I'm talking about, model is literally, I'm standing literally like 3 feet away, and the model was right there, and they were all standing. Marty comes up behind me and just says to my ear, I want you to do this in Chinese. And I went, he goes, just do your whole presentation in Chinese. And I'm looking at him, and, he has that look on his face. And I went, okay, I guess I won't question you why, but all right. So I'm already like nervous. This is my first presentation, and I thought, okay, whatever. So they all gathered, and Marty introed and said, okay, she's going to take you through it. So I immediately went right into my Shanghainese, and I don't know if you saw my speech on the TA, but literally I said in Shanghainese, I could say, so I said, oh, 今早天氣足嘅好 Land Pavilion. 你們烏湯呢話，我哋即係講嗱，下次呢三呢，我即係講the Rolly Crump. 你們即係講到半日前，我即係講到故事的 Marty Sklar, and 即係講到故事的 Land Pavilion. So I went and threw in all these little American so they knew that I was talking about the Land Pavilion and the market, but they couldn't understand all the in between. And it was so hilarious because I'm standing there about ready to crack up, and I don't know what to do because I can't remember his name, but the gentleman, the CEO, was standing literally right there looking at me. They're all in their suits and all that. And they all started kind of having that weird look on their face, like, okay, whatever. And finally, Marty came up and stopped me in about 5 minutes into it. It sent forever. And he just laughed. He goes, okay, Doris, that's okay. That's all right. And I went, oh my God, thank you. Because I was running out of things to say. And he said, okay, I asked Doris to give the presentation in Chinese. And oh my God, as soon as he said that, all of them went, oh, okay, great. Okay, we're relieved now, because we thought we couldn't understand her English.
Oh,
her accent was so bad. And they have never heard me speak. I don't speak with an accent. Afterwards, it was like they just were so relieved. Ties got loosened, jackets came off, and they were all happy and relaxed. And that was the reason why. And that's what I said in my speech, was that was when I realized how smart Marty was. And because he knew this was a tense moment, a tense meeting, because this is sort of like a go, no go to move on to the next stage.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody was so dressed up and so, organized and very corporate that he wanted to relax everybody up. And so by doing that, it just broke down all the barriers. People were relaxed, laughing and relaxed. And he came up to me afterwards and he gave me credit to say, I think you're the one that actually made them sign the deal.
Oh,
and
wow.
Keep going. And I thought, oh, that was very sweet of him to say. But yeah, boy, I was sweating bullets. Because when I started talking in Chinese, I could see the board group in the front, but I could also see John Hinch standing in the back. And, John is very into the Asian culture. And he, John stands there with his look and he's like this when I'm talking in Chinese. And I thought, oh my God, maybe he knew what I'm talking about. And all I'm talking about was my feet hurts. It's like, today's a good day, Rolly Crump. And, how am I going to get through this? And then Lamb Pavilion and all that. And just like doing that. And I thought, oh my goodness, he knows what I'm saying. But he didn't. So it was fun. It was quite a moment, I have to say.
Oh, whatever it takes to get the pitch, I suppose, to get it across.
Yeah. And there was another story that I did tell too about John for Showcase. Was he being the executive art director, he had to approve everything. And he's a very close-share color system person, which not everybody knew what that was, but it's a paint system that pretty much all the parks use because that's his thing. And I was designing an imperial collection from the museum in Beijing, and it's the first time out. And so I picked an imperial purple, a Chinese imperial purple color that I mixed myself. So I put the whole package in there, and I went to see him to show him to get his approval. And I had all my fellow colleagues saying, oh boy, he's not going to approve this. You didn't use Clocher, first of all, and he doesn't like dark colors. And I went, yeah, but it's logical because that's what the exhibit is about, an imperial thing. Anyway, so I showed it to him, and sure enough, he went, yeah, okay, this isn't the Clocher, because he has his little Clocher box of chips, color chips. So he pulled out the purple that he felt and he put it against mine, and it was very different. I don't like Clocher because it has a gray cast to it, and I've never said that to him, but I don't like any of the colors. It always has that. So anyhow, he did that, and he says, yeah, it needs to match this Clocher. So I went, fine, go back to the drawing board. I went back and I thought, no, that's not the right, that's not a good Chinese imperial purple. So I painted his Clocher purple chip to match my purple chip. And I put it together and I got it all ready, and it's the Clocher. In the back it had all the numbers, and I took it back to him and I put it out, and I was like, and I went, okay, here it is. And he looked at it forever, and he had his magnifying glass, and he finally looked at me and he nodded. Basically he approved. But he looked at me and I went, oh crap, I know he knew that I knew that he knows that I painted his chip out. But he gave me face, he gave me the respect to think that he knew that I felt I was right. It was the right purple to use. So he allowed me to do it.
That's amazing. And that's some gumption right there. I appreciate that. That's really good. Well, and it just amazes me. Everything about EPCOT in particular is that when you look back at old memos and things, he was signing off on everything. It's really remarkable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. Everything. I don't know how he did that.
Well, that wraps up part one of our interview with Doris Hardoon. Jeff, a lot to talk about there, just in the first few years of her career.
Oh, yes. And I'm sure any fan of the land is going to love all that wall carpet detail. I got to go with that. And the things I've learned about fabric alone,
Yes.
mind-boggling. But yeah, what an experience. And again, we talk so much about this time at EPCOT. It's a meeting of generations. So the experience she had working with all these people and her herself, people working with her, just an interesting time. I'm glad we can talk to all these people about their experiences.
Right. The very first time I talked to her, and she was kind of walking me through the things that she had done, and she got to the point where, and I did this really nice carpet thing for the Harvest Theater at the Land, and I about fell out of my chair. It's like, you have no idea how famous this carpet is. And I think in the years since I first talked to her, she's kind of experienced the fame that it has gained in that time. But I said, you have no idea how beloved your wall carpet is, and just the fact that it ties back to her own family and her own origins, and just her origin story entirely blew my mind.
A great story. And man, the coincidence of that being, her uncle's company. I mean, that's just
Right.
wild. But yeah, I mean, it's also a testament to just the attention to every single detail. And the art direction of this park is so unique. I mean, obviously, the art direction in most every Disney park is uniquely obsessive, but something about that Epcot initial design was so cohesive. I mean, you can see in what she's talking about, doing, signs for fast food stalls, and everything's done, by hand or a computer in a really complicated way back then that was really ahead of its time. One way or the other, it's just going the extra mile. And that's why I think all this stuff speaks to us so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was all hands on deck. Everyone took it really seriously, and everybody put their all into it. And everything was under the watchful eye of John Hinch, people at that level, these great talents. Everything at the Land was going through Rolly Crump. So these were real A-list talents on every pavilion, and everything had an eye on it at all times. There wasn't anything just kind of being shuffled off easily.
Yeah.
It was all a big effort.
And you think about, going through Rolly and then going through John Hinch. I mean, stuff's going to get done right. Incredible stuff. And we have more to discuss with Doris coming up.
Yes. And so many more projects and so many things that I was really interested to hear about. So really looking forward to it. And again, must thank Doris for her time. She spent a lot of time talking to me, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we have that and our harvest episode, talking a little bit about the Land coming up. A lot to look forward to in the near future here on the Radio Hour.
Exactly. Some early holiday gifts for you.
That's right. Michael, since November, it's going to be the kind of unicorn. We're going to have 3 episodes in November. Don't forget, we've still got a lot of fodder for our live stream from the last episode. It'd be a good time to sign up for Patreon, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be. It is a way to help support the show, and you get a little something back in return. Get a little packet of swag. You get some early access to our episodes. At a certain level, you get our monthly live stream, which we talk about the subject of the month with some rare video and audio, and a really great live chat with a bunch of really nice people. That's always really the highlight of the thing for me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we about destroyed everybody with last month's 50th anniversary stream. But this month we got some good stuff too. So yeah, sign up before the end of the month. You can be a part of that.
Absolutely. And the 50th, I enjoyed the responses to that. I think we really had some good stuff for that one. So yeah, sign up for the end of the month. You can catch that. Sign up for the end of the year. You can deduct it all from your taxes because it is tax deductible. And of course, you can sign up at patreon.com/ProgressCityUSA.
And we thank you all for signing up who have, and thank you all for listening.
Absolutely.
If you want to find us on Twitter, Michael's at Progress City USA. I'm at Jeff G. Crawford. Send us an email at podcast@progresscityusa.com. Sometimes you even make it on the air, right, Michael?
Absolutely. You never know. So, we'll be back next time with more from Doris Hardoon. Lot to talk about. Maybe a little Westcott. Can't ever get enough of that. Some Hong Kong, some Shanghai, and much, much more. Really looking forward to it. So we'll be back with that. From all of us to all of you, thanks for listening, and have a great day.